Hi, I want to speak to those today who have chosen a Jewish life for themselves and their families. I want to speak to you about religion and wanting to be religious and what does it mean to be religious and why should someone choose a religious life? And the quick answer is solely for the pursuit of goodness. Now I know that's a really loaded term because what does it mean to want goodness? Friends, first you must understand that in order to sincerely want to pursue good, you must despise and want to fight evil, injustice, and cruelty. In other words, in order to love the good, you have to actively hate the bad. Because this isn't a social club you're joining, but God's plan for repairing the world. In other words, His personal Marine Corps. And why didn't I say because of the love for God? Well, before I explain that, let me explain one of the most, if not the most important tenet in Judaism, which is that everything that we do in Judaism, we do for our fellow man, even when it seems that we're doing it for the Almighty. In other words, those man-to-God mitzvahs are just preparations or training for man-to-man mitzvahs. How can I say this? Well, friends, God doesn't need your love. He needs you to listen and watch the way He works so you can emulate Him. And this is the whole purpose of Him reaching out to humanity. And it's clear and purposeful and powerful if you stop and think about it. And still you have Jews, most Jews today, thinking that the reason He reached out was because of how special the Jews were. Well, friends, that's the wrong answer. Friends, the Jewish people are special to God only in the way that they emulate His characteristics as described in the Holy Torah. In other words, only when they do good and spread goodness to the rest of the world, and not only do it, but do it besimcha, with joy, which means to do it and get it. In other words, to make that connection that this is what HaKadosh Baruch Hu did for me. Whether it's saving you from a life of pain and destruction, to maybe giving you the opportunity to be raised in a frum religious household and personally know the Creator. And friends, if you can't or even don't try to make an ethical connection between the daily mitzvahs you perform and physically making this world a better place, friends, really, you're just wasting your precious time. And that's why the Rambam states that you only love the Creator to the extent that you bring others to Him, Jew or Gentile alike. And like we stated, that He doesn't need their love, so this means to make others like Him. And how is He? He's holy, my friends. Like the Navi teaches us that the holy God is made holy through righteousness. In other words, doing good to others, and that is exactly what He expects from us. And the reason this message is so important today is because the majority of the Jewish people feel that Torah, Judaism, and Jews have nothing to offer humanity unless humanity breaks in and demands it. So friends, we have to ask ourselves, what is the purpose of the Jewish experiment? What, that God favored and revealed His will to a group just in order for them to keep those instructions for living to themselves while humanity self-destructs? Does that sound just? Does that sound righteous? Well, that's exactly what most Jews believe today. So stop and think about it for a moment. If someone during the plague had the cure and hid it from humanity and just watched them all expire before his eyes, do you think that such an action would be sanctioned by a holy God? And do you think that this is God's purpose for Jews? Friends, like the rabbis teach that the holy God gave Israel the Torah so that they could take it and spread it to the rest of the world. And this is the purpose of Torah and why God revealed His will on Mount Sinai. And the rabbis even teach that if someone had the cure and doesn't share it with the sick, their blood is on His hands because they didn't preach Him as God to the nations. So what we're seeing today in Judaism is not goodness. And any belief system that advocates such an ideology is not divinely inspired. But they'll tell you that Gentiles aren't obligated to keep Torah, that they just have to keep the 7 laws of Noah, which I don't have to tell you, they don't even waste their time trying to teach. Well, anyways, let's analyze the word obligated. So in other words, non-Jews are not obligated to behave as the Almighty does. Well, I agree. And the reason they're not is because they didn't receive the Torah. In other words, they don't know any better. Can you imagine how silly and backward it would be if non-Jews who don't know Torah and don't know of that great heavenly standard still got punished for not keeping it? No, friends, that wouldn't make any sense. All this means is that when they do receive and accept Torah from us who are emulating the Creator, then they will be obligated. Because this is exactly what we teach happened to the Jews. right? Before Har Sinai, the Jews weren't obligated in keeping mitzvahs, right? Till they received it and they said, Na'aseh v'nishma. Should we then say that they shouldn't have accepted it because they weren't obligated to and should have just stayed with their hybrid form of the Noahide laws? No, on the contrary, we thank the Almighty daily for this precious gift He has given us. Why? Because it's a schus to be a Yid, my friends. Even the Rambam states that Islam and Christianity has brought the world to the doorstep of Torah, and it's up to us now to draw them the rest of the way. This, my friends, is sound theology, and those who oppose it should stop and realize how morally and ethically primitive these 7 laws are, if they even care, instead of understanding them properly as the bare minimum God uses to judge non-Jews, but clearly not the highest level they should try to aspire to. Why? So they can have as big a chelek on Olam Hazeh as well as Olam Haba. And the reason this is so important today is that many, because of the improper understanding of halacha, have no conversion programs and just tell non-Jews who approach their synagogues to go away and go keep their 7 laws. And it's clear that these laws don't elevate anyone in any way. In other words, they don't bring man to emulate his creator. No, friends, these laws are for primitive pagans in a catatonic state. Go ahead and analyze them for yourselves. With the exception of dinim, they are all do nots and not do's. There isn't even a commandment to love God or to do good to others or to be holy. And this is the bone you toss real people with real problems looking for real solutions from a holy God. Friends, this is not a viable lifestyle for a religiously serious person. In other words, someone who comes from either Islam or Christianity. And friends, these laws belong in the Bronze Age, and that's right when Chazal state they were abolished. And I'll say it again, if you're seriously committed in keeping Torah mitzvahs, don't be a Noahide, be a Jew. But let's be honest, the problem is greed. It makes you feel special to have Gentiles begging for what you have. It makes you look powerful to embarrass them in front of the congregation or kick them out altogether when all they want to do is pray. These are real people with real problems, just like you and I. And you have the audacity to throw them out when they could have been anywhere on Shabbos doing any immoral thing, but they chose to come to shul and praise the Almighty. You embarrass fathers in front of their children and ultimately commit to Chilul Hashem, a great desecration of God's name. And if you're a Gentile that has been embarrassed or made to feel inferior by the rabbis, in behalf of Judaism, I'm sorry. But I want to tell you that you are not inferior, but most likely are on a higher level than any born Jew could dream to attain. Like our rabbis teach, that the reason a convert is dearer to the Almighty than a born Jew is because the born Jew is here because his ancestors saw the smoke and the fire on the mountain. But the convert saw nothing and he still came. And this goes back to my initial question. Why should someone want to be religious? And why is loving God not enough? Now, listen very carefully to what I'm going to say, because this is very important. Whoever chooses to become religious solely because they love the Creator makes him chas v'shalom into an idol. What's an idol? Anything that becomes and ends unto itself instead of a means to a greater, holier ends. And that's exactly how the Rambam describes idolatry, a mere waste of time, providing nothing beneficial for anyone but themselves. So friends, if you haven't made that connection on how any of your religious observances makes this world a better place, then you're missing the point of it all. And that's why the only major difference between the Messianic age and our world is the knowledge of God filling the earth like the water fills the sea. And the result of that huge dissemination of Torah truths is the age we long for. The age of peace and brotherly love. That's why the Rambam teaches that if you're not actively doing as our father Abraham did, bringing people to the truth, you do not love the Almighty, but actually work against him by delaying the Messianic age of peace and King Mashiach who will rule it. Yes, friends, the pursuit of goodness and anything less would fall under insincerity. So if you're hearing me today and you want to be religious for any other reason, whether it's because you love the state of Israel, Jewish culture, or you feel you owe it to your ancestors, my friends, don't be. Because the last thing the world needs is more insular, selfish Jews making Judaism look meaningless and purposeless. So if you're a non-Jew, consider a deeper commitment with the Almighty. And if you're a born Jew, sympathize with the rest of the world just as the Creator sympathized with your fathers. And my goal with all I do is ultimately to de-ethnicize Judaism so that it could return to what it once was. The universal guide for living for all humanity that has the power not only to change some men, but all men. And if you're hearing me today and you're interested in converting to Judaism, please visit Torah Judaism International at torahjudaism.org. And if you're interested in learning more about Torah Judaism, please visit bejewish.org. Thank you.